what we should think about God. Listen to the psalmist. Verse 3, the Lord is great and is highly praised. His greatness is unsearchable. One generation will declare your works to the next and will proclaim your mighty acts. I will speak of your splendor and your glorious majesty and your wondrous works. They will proclaim the power of your awe-inspiring acts, and I will declare your greatness. They will give a testimony of your great goodness and will joyfully sing of your righteousness. We're to think about how great God is, his greatness in character, who he is, and his greatness in conduct, what he's done, his greatness in attributes, the things about him, and the greatness of his actions in the past and in our own personal lives. He says we can never tire of thinking about how great God is, because his greatness is inexhaustible. He says one generation shouldn't, I'll put my version, shouldn't get tired of telling the same old stories about God generation after generation after generation, because they are just great works that he has done. But we forget. So, what did he say? The greatness of God. The Israelites, and no doubt this author, King David, would have thought about things like the creation of all the heavens and the earth. Everything in it, their God, the Israelites' God, Yahweh, created. They knew this. This God created by saying, let it be. This is a massive and mighty and powerful God who does great things. You can't get tired of watching the shorts on YouTube about sharks and alligators and just all the cool things of this creation. Okay, that's my personal thing. Probably because my boys are always... But, I mean, there's just so much cool stuff in this creation that God created. Under the water, seeing how everything works down there. This thing eats this thing, and then this thing eats its poop. It's just how it all works. It's just crazy how creative our God is. The creations, they would have thought of God's great flood, how God wiped out human wickedness, almost. But he cleared the earth because of how wicked things had gotten, that there wasn't a moment where people weren't thinking about some way to be wicked, and he just turned on the bathwater. They would have thought of the great Exodus and Moses leading the people, their people, from Egypt, this mighty nation, through waters that he supernaturally parted. All these people going through, and then when the enemy comes behind them, he closes those waters and wipes them out just like that. Israel wins because of their God. And that's the gospel, by the way. That's what he does with each of us. He leads us, and then he wipes out the enemy's sin and death, and we get the victory. They would have thought of the Exodus. They would have thought of the walls of Jericho coming down after Israel was in the promised land, defeating town after town, and all they did was march around this impenetrable city. Nobody could get in there. It'd be like and all they did was march around, and on the seventh day, blow their little horns, and God made the walls crumble. I was trying to think of what nation would that be like? Russia right now or something? Just the walls just crumbled. That's what kind of power God has for his people when they're obedient. How the prophet of God was fed in the wilderness. He would have starved to death, but no, he fed him by the mouth of ravens, bringing him meal after meal. We see how he used the small boy, King David, the author of this, when he was a boy, to defeat the giant Goliath. Story after story of how mighty and great God is. We heard about the time Jesus threw the demon legion into the herd of pigs and cast them into the water, and they drowned, and it showed how Jesus was more powerful than the evil forces of this world and over nature and over all of these things. The book is full of just how great God is, but I think maybe, possibly, the greatest thing about God is what we see next, what the psalmist says in verse 8. The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and great in faithful love. Oh, that is great. That the God who does all these mighty things, that the God who has no limitations on what he could be, what he could do, he is gracious, kind, patient, great in faithful love toward his people. That's great news. That's beyond good news.